Welcome to Enlightened Game with Slim Sir, as he takes the lessons he learned from the streets, commonly known as the game, and applies them to everyday life, helping everyday people win the game of life, focusing on relationships, money, and the winner's lifestyle. This podcast will turn any chump into a champ. So if you're ready, let the game begin. And now, your host, the most valuable player himself, Slim Sir.
Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Slim Sir, and I want to welcome you to my audio notebook. This is a place that I just put down my thoughts and ideas about life, but in particular, the game. The game between men and women is as old as time itself. And many of us don't know the rules of the game, don't know how to play the game, and that's why we are constantly losing the game. Many of you who may be listening would say, well, I'm not losing the game. Well, the facts may prove you wrong. The divorce rate in the United States of America is over 80%. Domestic violence is extremely high. This teaches me that this is an indicator that our relationships are not working out. Point blank and simple. Now, if the game is as old as time itself, then there must be rules to this game. Universal and timeless rules of this game that if we knew and understood them and applied them to our lives and our relationships, we would be a lot more successful. I wonder sometimes in my life that how could we live in the most technology advanced society, yet we are so far behind when it comes with dealing with ourselves as men, but also dealing with women and just life in general. You know, that leads me to a point that from as far back as we can go in history, you'll notice that there has always been a system of turning little boys into men. There has always been customs and traditions that little boys had to go through that qualify themselves to be men. In the Jewish community, they have a system and a ceremony called bar mitzvah. In the Spanish community, they have a ceremony, I believe it's sweet 16 or sweet 15, but the general principle is the same. You have to go through certain things to qualify yourself to be considered by your community as a man or as a woman. Even when you go to the savage, or what they call the savage parts of the world, parts of Africa, parts of Australia, where these people are far removed from our civilization, yet they have the common sense and structure and a system in place that will develop their little boys into men. However, when we come to America and we come to the West, these are supposed to be the biggest, most successful societies on the planet. Yet, we don't have a system that helps little boys develop into being men. And specifically as black people, black men, we don't have a system that trains us and helps us to transition from being boys into men. And that's why I teach the Max Bible. Many people may disagree with the curriculum, but that's only because my personal belief is there's an assault on real manhood these days, and most of us have been victims of this assault or indirect victims of this assault because We either grew up without fathers, or our fathers did not pass down the system of manhood to us. In my studies, what I have learned is that one of the greatest secrets that has ever been kept away from black men, specifically in North America, here in America, are the principles and systems of manhood. You see, while other societies have to go through a process and a system to be qualified as a man, in America, the only system that we have that demarks our boyhood into our quote-unquote manhood is age. We turn 18 and then we're considered a man. Or we go to prison and then we're considered a man. Or we have a baby and then we're considered a man. Or we have some type of hustle and make some money and then we're considered a man. However, what I want you to notice and observe is that none of these practices that we do here in America as black men, none of them are based on a system of standards to measure yourself up to see if you are a man or not. So without a clear definition of manhood, we're always guessing what a man is. Without a clear system and standard principles and practices of manhood, we're subject to music videos and rap songs and all of the images that we see and all of the social conditioning, all of the sayings of our families, right? And you have to try to piece together what you think manhood is. There's no complete system. Well, there wasn't a complete system. Now there is. It's called the Max Bible. So I'm going to take this time to highly encourage you to go to my website, slimsir.com, and purchase a PDF copy of the Max Bible. It's $14. That small investment that you make of $14 is going to pay off big. It's going to pay off huge for the rest of your life. And I can tell you that because this book was the root cause of my change and my improvement and my advancement and growth in life. I was pretty much a loser up to the age of 40 years old. My father passed away. And that's when I faced a real dilemma. You see, my dad was a man's man. That's how I saw him. And I tried to follow him, but I was so much different than my father. When he passed away, and I realized that it was real after the shock had wore off, the very first thing that came into my mind is, how do I become a man? And his passing, it signaled, I guess, that moment that I had to start my search and my journey for a system of manhood. Not saying that my father didn't teach me great qualities, because he did. He's the man of my life. He's the man I look up to. But there's a great need from our people. Specifically, it started with myself. I recognized it. I started to recognize it within myself. There's a great need for us as black men to know exactly how to think, how to see ourselves, how to speak and act and behave as real men. And so, there's something spiritual to this for me. I remember reading the Bible as a little boy. I used to try to read the Bible. And I remember reading how God made man in his own image. And I remember thinking as a little boy that if man was made in the image of God and he's just like God, then man is a God. But I didn't feel like a God. And it wasn't until I started to get this knowledge, this body of knowledge that we call the Mac game, that I really started to see myself as a man and not as a homeboy, or not as my nigga, or not as some pimping, or not as, a dog. That's funny because in the South, we say, "What's up, dog?" And if you look at the word dog and spell it backwards, it spells God. So this is clear proof that how we're living today is opposite than what we should be living. We're living as dogs. In reality, we should be living as gods. But how do you learn how to become a god? How do you learn how to become a man? The only way you're ever going to learn how to become a man, and a man is made in the image of God, is you have to learn from a man how to be a man. If you wanted to be a doctor, you would have to go to medical school and learn how to be a doctor from a doctor. You can't go to mechanic school and learn how to work and operate on the human body. It just doesn't match up. Well, we were taught the definition of manhood from our former slave masters. This is the reality. Well, if your slave master is teaching you how to be a man, I want you to think about this. What kind of man is he making you to become? Your slave master will never teach the slave the same knowledge that he has. The slave master will never make the slave his equal. And therefore, this is clear proof that we were never taught manhood, and we were never taught manhood on purpose, for the purpose of keeping us in the state, the mind state, and the physical and financial condition of a boy. And this is what white slave masters will refer to us as boy. We were never referred to as a man. According to their constitution, when it was drafted, a black man was less than a man. A black man was considered 3/5 of a man, which means that he was considered subhuman. And subhuman is another way of saying they considered us as animals. And this is why it is such disrespectful, and they laugh at us when we refer to ourselves as dogs, when we refer to ourselves as savages, when we refer to ourselves as beasts. We're making complete fools of ourselves. We are in fact men. And that's why we do this class, to teach you what a man is, because we have been robbed of the knowledge of who and what a man is and what our role and responsibility is in life. And this knowledge has always been on the planet. However, it has been kept secret and kept away from us on purpose. Anyway, my time is almost up. I would encourage you to go to slimsir.com and purchase your copy of the Max Bible. Also, feel free to scroll down and support all of the authors on my page and all of the consultants on my page, and feel free to access any and all of the information that we are making available to you. And remember that every Sunday we're going to have a Mac meeting on Instagram Live. Follow me there at therealslimsir.com every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 3 o'clock on the West Coast. Please share this podcast, and I'll see you again. Peace.